Hello everyone, it's Mike Levin. Wednesday, June 29th, around 7 p.m. 2016. Sometimes forget to state that year, and I think that will be important metadata in the I used the wrong word before. I believe it's the transcription, the automatic transcription that's going to be made of my voice. And you'll be able to look and see how well Google did at understanding me as I walk down or up this busy street of Broadway, where the audio is crappy, but the scenery is great. I'm walking back to past where I passed Think Geek on my last video. I will dart across while I have the chance, like a true New Yorker. And I thought I would just shoot a video coming down this other way because I have so many ways to get to and from work, which is, I'll have to say, up to a 20-minute walk from a subway exit. When I take the A, I get off around 33rd Street and I guess 8th Avenue near Madison Square Garden at Penn Station, of course. And it's a little bit of a walk, and there's a lot of choices and routes I can take. My arm's getting tired here. I gotta switch around how I'm carrying this bag. And I thought I'd say a few words about what I'm doing here. It took me a long time to start calling myself an SEO. I remember I was a webmaster jack of all trades at an employer called Profit 21, which had been bought up by a company called Activant, and I think they're now part of Epicor. So they're one of the sort of enterprise resource planning ERP software, less than SAP's. They were never included in like what used to be called the BOPs, the Bon, Oracle, PeopleSoft, and SAP of the ERP software era of like the 90s, just pre-web, because the web really changed the model a lot because software development could be very different, and a lot of alternative solutions sprung onto the scene, like NetSuite and such at that time. And yeah, so I was trying to sell software. I was trying to sell software for controlling digital signage networks. Here, I'll do a 360 here. I'm sure there will be some digital signage here on Broadway. I don't know, something. But it was for a software company who actually made the systems that ran digital signs, where it could be hundreds or thousands or tens of thousands of monitors distributed around your company around the world, all of them being securely updated by poll techniques that polled at good times to keep excessive internet traffic from occurring and colliding and slowing down the process. So it was really clever stuff that was written during a pre-internet era. No, it wasn't pre-internet, I take that back. It was a pre-web era, but where dial-up was still prevalent as your way to even connect to the internet if you were lucky enough to have such an account. But most of the connections were point-to-point dial-up with ye old modems, and this software was often used to run cable barker channels, which are just basically scrolling graphics displays where they might intersperse local information with advertising, local advertising, to just fill the channels that were available from the cable head ends, the people who took the satellite feed from the cable companies and pumped it out over the local cable lines. And there were a lot of smaller players back in the day. Sorry about the audio, Oliver. I'll see what I can do about that, but this vlogging works because I don't edit. And that almost brings me back full circle there, where I was going down into that rabbit hole of off-topic. I took a long time to realize I was an SEO by trying to sell that digital signage software online as a webmaster. And it's like, okay, I'll call myself an SEO. And then I went from this long-running internal job at Scala Multimedia, later Scala Digital Signage, and I think they're just Scala Signage today. Often being confused with the Scala scalar language that runs on the Java runtime engine that's become so popular. So they got a great name in a way and not a great name in another way. They've got a major competing technology with the same name. It's kind of sort of in the same space, not really, but Scala is what you find out there when you research digital signage. It's some of my good work from back in the day that still exists even to today. And I think they hired the company Sear to make and maintain things in the meanwhile, and most of my systems have been phased out. But I know a few of them are lurking. They are running to this day, invented during the early days of Active Server Page and SQL Server 6.0, which they probably are still running their internal systems on there. And I wanted to be a developer, but I was always sort of a junior developer. I wasn't doing things in the professional, scalable, genericized or generalized fashion sufficiently. So my stuff never really took off. Also, I didn't know about free and open source, and even if I did, I was on the wrong language, VB script on Active Server Page. But nonetheless, I was very effective at what I did, and I started to call myself SEO reluctantly after a while when I moved to New York City to take an SEO job, my first job as an SEO, over 10 years ago. And I've been calling myself an SEO ever since. And along comes all these machine learning, big data updates from Google, changing the top factors and criteria that Google uses, at least by a fifth or maybe by a fourth. 25% of the formula is being handled by things that are collectively labeled rank brain. So if you think Google already had PageRank, which was a sort of intelligence in its own way, but they're updating PageRank with rank brain. So they join in the middle, a inner join, if you will, on rank. And it's a clever play on words, but what it is it's machine learning stuff. Sample data sets, heuristics, and pattern recognition and decision trees based on the recognition of particular patterns. Fairly straightforward if you work at it enough. It will take practice like anything else, but this is the field of finding correlations that might actually count. So data is being generated by all these systems everywhere all the time. You've got access to some of it yourself if you're running Google Analytics and have registered on Google Search Console, previously Webmaster Tools. Anyway, you can connect to those through their API and pull down your data using date ranges and filters on your queries and all kinds of neat stuff. So you actually have a bunch of that kind of data that you can start working with right now today, and that's exactly what I'm doing, plus some proprietary other data sources, which is like totally awesome to be in this situation. And I am querying, I'm asking questions, and I'm writing the queries to get the answers to those questions. I'm performing the actual data pulls. I'm distilling the data down as I may need to with, group bys and aggregate functions to get counts of things. And I'm doing this like snap, snap, snap. And I used to use SQL Workbench/J, a Java client. So, you can use it on every platform, and it's, roughly your query analyzer. And really comfortable, really familiar. And then I learned about this thing I won't stop talking about, Jupyter Notebook. Previously IPython Notebook. And I am completely falling in love with this way of running Python code. And I never thought I would. I became a server guy. I liked to instantiate me a new virtual server every time. to the extent that I created my own respin of Linux called Levinux, which is QEMU, some of the most popular stable binaries that have been distributed of the virtual machine emulator, free and open source virtual machine emulator called QEMU, in this magic cocktail mix of files that are dependencies on their respective platforms, so that you can run this virtual machine on the desktop of Mac or Windows or another Linux system that has a graphical desktop. So anything with GNOME or KDE or Unity would be able to run a Levinux just fine. In fact, on that platform, all you need is a terminal. It's even better. So I really believe in controlling your code execution environment. And I was very skeptical that you could actually do that with Python running natively on your local machine without a virtualization layer for the hardware to make it look like a dedicated server. And to some extent, VENV, or virtual ENV, is Python's solution to that on Linux systems. But your results may vary on particularly Windows. So when you install stuff out of a software repo like pip, the loudness again. Well, it's not as loud as yesterday. I'll finish up this video quick because I'm near the subway entrance. When you install software under Windows for Python by using pip install, especially NumPy and a handful of things that have to compile from C source code using the GNU CC, the GCC compiler, C compiler toolchain, it's not going to work if it's on Windows, and it's probably barely going to work if it's on Mac. Mac is greatly helped by this thing called Homebrew, and there's also Mac ports, and there's also Think, and they have a variety of approaches to this thing. But this thing called Anaconda, I believe it's from Continuum Software. I got to get it straight which Continuum makes, but Anaconda is a package of pre-compiled, I guess, executables for all the major platforms. So you can have a reliable, consistent code execution platform on Windows, Mac, and other Linux desktops. And there were a few wildcards that I just worked out. One of the big wildcards was how to get a virtual environment under Anaconda under Windows, which seemed to be crapping out for me because it kept telling me it couldn't find source. So to activate a virtual environment a la Conda, which is the repository system of Anaconda from Continuum Software, what one does is they use the Conda system to create the virtual environment. No problem, I didn't have any problem there. And then in order to activate the virtual environment, if you're on a Linux or Mac system running, I guess, Mac OS I have to call it pretty soon, but OS X, you can type source space activate space virtual env name. I think I have that right. If I don't, I've reversed the last two, but it's basically 3 commands, with the first command being source, the second, I believe, being activate. But if you're on Windows, you just type the word activate and your virtual environment name directly, leaving off the word source. And bam, it works. And so now I truly believe that I have a perfectly equivalent code execution environment on any type of platform I may be sitting down at, and you layer that on top of Jupyter Notebook that lets you develop some code to run there very easily in this wonderful browser-based environment that I never thought I'd be using as a command line guy and a confirmed Vim text editor user. And so I'm using Jupyter Notebook, which is the web browser, based REPL system, run, eval, print, loop. Basically a way to rapidly experiment with your code. And if bugs happen, having an interactive debugger and all this color coding and tab command line completion, really great environment. I did not think I was going to be a convert in using this web thing, but now it's part of my permanent workflow. I use it as certainly the main program that invokes all the next stage package imports. And it works seamlessly with Git as well. You can blend your notebook in with your Git repository and have a true full working environment. And there's a equivalent of GitHub for the Jupyter Notebook world called NB Viewer. So just Google NB Viewer, and it's like every solution anybody's ever made work in a self-contained way. Sometimes data, files and all, they can upload and share with other people. So, consistent Python code execution environment, great way to experiment with data and to share what you do, and SEOs having to change what they do. I am hanging up one particular hat that's a lot about lining up the crosshairs of your target keyword and your title tag, your URL, your headline, and in the anchor text of links leading to the page, the old SEO formula that was very effective with the long tail, almost no matter what. Surprisingly effective. My hit tail invention, 2006, still going strong. You make your systems resilient to change by looking at what Google is doing and not changing what you would normally be doing, except by a little bit directionally informed by what Google's doing. That's kind of data science-y stuff. I gotta kind of become a data scientist to build all these actionable reports and data visualizations and all the other stuff that I'm gonna have to be doing with a much better kung fu than the skills I had to keep sharp in ages past. XSLT transformations to slice and dice pages and stylize them, probably being one of the more complex of my tricks, but inventing frameworks like Ruby on Rails far before Ruby on Rails was another one of my tricks. And I went to some pretty big extremes and had to develop a lot of my own tools, which is precisely what I don't have to do now because Jupyter Python's so awesome. Python's so awesome. Linux/Unix-like environments that it's sitting on is so awesome. When I get to managing larger code bases and wanting to jump around in files with a lot of well-developed muscle memory, Vim and all the VI derivative text editors, awesome. Someday I'll upgrade to Emacs, I know that, but I'm in no rush. I'm sparing my fingers some carpal tunnel syndrome. VI is command strokes are plenty for me to have to do muscle memory key combinations. Control Shift V to highlight columns. I hate that. I wish it was one thing. And I'll get into key bindings, but I keep my .vimrc very, very light. And so to reach the end of this video before I sub-reference again, I will say that I am repositioning from old school SEO capable of some of the darker arts, but living in the white to gray area, hanging up that hat and putting on the hat of my initials, Mike Levin, ML. You're going to be hearing a lot about ML in the future, and whenever you do, you can go, oh, that's that thing that ML is trying to do to apply to the field of SEO, and to essentially reposition myself doing data science, a sub-niche specialization that is made to be the subject of these types of data distillations and actionable item generation. SEO needs these data-informed action items to know what to do to a site next and next and next to make that site take on its perfect shape, both for the satisfaction of your users coming to use the site and also to the satisfaction of Google monitoring the signals of whether or not to continue to serve that page in search, to keep it pinned up, such as it were. And you have to have these signals firing off on a probably ongoing basis until enough permanent signals are accumulated, i.e. links still, links aren't going away, in order to reduce the reliance on new activity bias. So if something receives a lot of links or a lot of upvotes in Reddit or whatever it is in a short period of time, that is almost always the key signal that you've got a live piece of content that will reach the home page to be featured. These algorithms are known, either cracked or just available in the repositories as the code running these systems. And so the specialty then extends from those action items to a sort of performance art to make sure that content that is worthy of being rewarded by Google is assuredly given its fair chance by being pinned up by users in this distributed, crowdsourced way for a sufficient period of time so that the other factors can start to layer on, and so that your content, of which there is less overall URL targets, but higher, richer quality experiences per target, become recognized by Google, set in, become more and more highly associated, that URL for that keyword over time, sometimes faceting in other factors like per region, per language, etc. But you get the idea. There is a general keep things pointing upward in the positive direction over however many dimensional matrices you happen to be dealing with of relevancy factors. Keep an open mind about relevancy factors. Ask questions of your data. Try to answer those questions by examining and analyzing your data. But then also take the flip side approach of trying to just look at that data in all sorts of different ways to see if you can't have something suggest itself and start to emerge as a pattern you better take a look at. And then you're in that world of, well, I found some correlations, but correlation does not mean causation, and that is absolutely true. But after a while, you'll get a propensity of correlations such that you can say the odds are that these two things are interrelated because there's these other factors backing it up. And that becomes next generation SEO, my friends. It's data science. It's the intelligent application of data science by the people who have the whole feedback loop under their tight control so that they can observe, take a scientific approach, and satisfy the user to ever increasing degrees of satisfaction, verifiable and validatable, are those the right words, by Google through its many both algorithmic and crowdsourced quality control techniques. I guess I should slap a nickname on this. SEO Science. Anyway, thanks for joining me. Hope to see you again soon. And don't forget to subscribe.